All right, then, welcome back. Without further ado, we'll be moving into our next conversation here on the program. It's following the release of the 2025 SSC results by NECO. We can establish a few things for you here this morning. Comparatively, it's much improved than the WAEC results. There's a 60.26% credit pass in math and English. There's also a reduction in malpractice as reported by publications this morning. But overarchingly, it's a performance of Kano State that has topped the national performance charts. Much credit this morning is going to Governor Abad Kabir Yusuf, who was also pictured at the Governor's College, being received by students who were very joyous upon the Governor's arrival. Still with me in the studio this morning is Mr. Ben Agunloye, a public affairs analyst. Now, Mr. Ben, sir,
Yeah.
talking about students' performance over time, parents and guardians were quite worried. If you go down history lane 2025 with the jam glitch, with the WAEC saga, and now seems to be some respite in terms of what NECO has published as the results. Let's get your assessment.
Yeah, with NECO coming out, I think it's better for the parents and for the candidates. It's also a proof to show that at least there has been maybe some measure of improvement in administration of the examination. We need not take it out that the biggest challenge with the education sector in Nigeria is the fact that we have commercialized education. Because we make education a business, you expect that sharp practices will continue. But at least that we are seeing an improvement is something worthy of note. I would also say congratulations to Kano State. It's a large state with a large crowd of people. And if they are getting a better result, it only says that at least the number of people dropping out of school over the next few years in that environment should be coming down. There should be prayer on admission. Of course, there is NEL fund to help with those who may gain admission into the public school. So we expect that the future is bright and that the future is sure going to be better than the past. So to that extent, I think I wish to congratulate the parents, the government, and NECO for what had been achieved thus far. But there is still the need for improvement. And like we said, we need to look at making education a tool and a priority and not just a business. People should go into this sector because they are thinking of a better future. I think as a child going to school for the first time, my grandma would always say, look, she is useful and very dependable in the society. But that if she had had education, she would have been able to do better than she is doing. That so she is not saying you cannot be useful without going to school, but your usefulness and your impact can become higher if you add education to your natural ability. And so if we see it as a priority from that direction, so education may not be the tool to escape poverty. Because some children are saying, oh, without going to school, we can make money. And they've seen people who didn't go to school making money. But if those people who have the money without education were educated, their impact on the society would have been better. So we should see education as something that should be leveraged upon for our tomorrow and our society to become a better place.
Now, I was listening to the statement by the Registrar of Council, NECO, Professor Ibrahim Usisi, who was speaking in Mina yesterday. He said comparatively, as compared to 2024, where there were over 10,000 cases of malpractice, this year, 2025, there have been but 3,800 cases of malpractice spread across 13 states, which the council is going to probe. But you were talking about sharp practices earlier. When you look at this report that there's been about a 61% reduction in malpractice, are there some gains to be recorded in that regard?
Well, we still need to examine the data. Is it that they were reduced because there is a process change that make malpractices impossible, or that those who were involved in the sharp practices have become smarter, that they were able to operate below
And evade the
the
system.
radar. So we need to look at that. But like I said, the more the society de-emphasize commercializing education, the better the system will become. Because there are people who are into exam fraud. That is their business. Those who organize the special center, those who organize impersonation, that is the business they do. And they could thrive because the system is built as a business environment.
All right, Mr. Ben, just hold your thoughts. Let's expand the conversation. We have another guest joining in to be part of this dialogue. We have Dr. Bashir Suleiman, who is a political economist who joins us virtually. Hello, Doctor. Good morning to you and welcome to the program.
Hello, good morning. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be with you this morning.
It's a pleasure to have you as well. I'm in the studio with Mr. Ben Agunloye, who was establishing his opinion on the just released 2025 NECO SSCE results, saying that government also needs to change approach from looking at education as a revenue generating sector to making actual investments that translates to better performance. As compared to JAM and WAEC, NECO seems to have brought respite to candidates and parents. Let's get your opinion in that regard, Doctor.
Yes, it is a fact that today in Nigeria, education has been commercialized, if I may use that word. And why I said education today has been commercialized in Nigeria is because it has been used as a money-making venture, rather than seeing education as an integral aspect of the society, which both the government and the members of the society needs to make significant contributions towards ensuring that the integrity of the integrity of our educational system is maintained and sustained. One thing we must take note of is the fact that when the nation's educational system is put in place, then of course you should expect that in virtually every aspect of human endeavor, you are going to have the right people who are ready to do the right thing. But the moment the educational system is, commercialized and allowed to be run by miscreants and individuals who are only interested in, with their selfish interest rather than making contributions towards the nation's development, then at the end of the day, you would have a product of Nigerian educational system who will not be able to have what it takes to be able to make any significant contributions towards the nation's development. And at the end of the day, virtually every aspect of human endeavor will eventually be affected. It is important for me to also state this at this particular juncture, that if you want to, there's an adage in South Africa that goes that when you want to destroy a nation, you don't need to use weapons of mass destructions or ballistic missiles and whatever. What you just need to do is just make sure that the educational sector is polluted. Once the educational sector is corrupted, if I may use that word, then gradually the nations will fall, and at the end of the day, every aspect of the contributions, human contributions, especially directed towards nation building, will eventually collapse.
Now, Doctor, let's look at the level of performance of the candidates. Out of a total of over 1 million plus, that is over 1.3 million candidates who sat for the exam, over 818,000 of them managed to score credit passes in mathematics and English language. Conversations on the marking scheme are also in question. There's also deliberations on the need to transition these exams into CBT tests for candidates. Would you say these are key factors that have warranted in this improved performance as compared to other exams like JAM and WAEC?
This is a very good question. And the thing is, you see, science and technology have become the backbone of most society today. And whether we like it or not, globalization have translated or has made things very easy. So it is important for us here in Nigeria to see how best we can take advantage of globalization and see how we can be able to strengthen our institution, especially on the educational system. And by this, I mean, it is not a bad idea for us to have a CBT exams that covers WAEC, NECO, and JAM and all of that. But the thing is, you see, the educational system itself needs to improve. What I mean by educational system, what is the modes of teaching in our educational system today, especially at secondary school level? We are still, most schools in Nigeria are still analog. We have not gone digital. So if we're saying that we're going to move straight towards the digitalization of these particular examinations, then what happens to people from, rural areas? You see, a lot of people, a lot of students that wrote or write these particular examinations are coming from the rural communities. Only a handful of them are coming from the cities. So are we going to be fair to say that all exams or all of these exams should be conducted on CBT basis? What is the effort of government in ensuring that all secondary schools in Nigeria are, furnished with ICT gadgets to ensure that these students are catched at the earliest time? When students are if let's say every secondary school in Nigeria, government-based secondary school, for private secondary schools, these are things that they have already been able to achieve for a very long period of time. But our concern is public secondary schools. How far have government been able to provide these, electronic gadgets to be able to catch these students at a very young age? If this can be done, then I don't have any reservation. I don't have any problem, going digital as far as writing these particular examinations. Because today, even with the digitalization, today JAM has recently, brought into place a committee. They have created a committee that is expected, to examine infractions on these particular online examinations. It means that in as much as we're trying to go digital, we must also try as much as possible to up our game and try as much as possible to make sure that all processes or instances where individuals or groups can be able to circumvent the process to be able to get what they want are blocked, because there's no technology that is in existence today that is devoid of its own inherent challenges. It must have its own weaknesses. So what we need to do is, first and foremost, government should be able to supply these gadgets to all secondary schools, especially secondary schools in rural communities. Secondly, government should be able to also train teachers who are going to be masters of this particular gadgets, who are going to first and foremost have a very first-hand knowledge on how they can be able to use this gadget to teach the students, and so that they be able, at the end of the day, when these students get to their SSG level where they are expected to take their WAEC, JAM, and NECO, they would have been able to master their game, and they can be able to answer all the questions within the time allotted. In so many cases, these students find it difficult to be able to finish up, their questions, and at the end of the day, the system will trip off. And once the system trip off, at the end of the day, the students cannot continue, and that is the reason why perhaps you see that the recent term that has been conducted, a lot of students could not be able to make the cutoff of most universities. So I think what we need to lay emphasis is for government to be able to come in, to be able to provide this gadget, and not only providing the gadget should be provided, and they should be kept in safe hands. Because today what we know or what we have seen so far in Nigeria is that government in some instances might be well intentioned by providing the gadget or doing the needful, but at the end of the day, Nigerians will eventually sabotage the effort, or at the end of the day, these items are stolen. So at the end of the day, what we just need to do is government should do the needful by providing the gadget and ensure that these gadgets are kept in a trusted hands, and recruit staffs or train staffs of secondary schools to be able to know how to use these gadgets so that they can be able to incorporate it or integrate it into their teaching curriculum, and then these students can be able to be trained on this. Let them be able to have a mastery of how they can be able to use the systems so as to be able to prepare them ahead of their final examinations.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Bashir, for establishing that. I'll come back to Mr. Ben in the studio. Doctor has made a case for the conditionalities before transiting entirely to CBT. But I'd like you to talk about the marking scheme, which many compare when we talk about WAEC and NECO. It was interesting to hear Professor Ibrahim Mushishi in his press conference say that a foreign center in Gabon was unable to produce even one candidate with 5 credit passes in mathematics, English, and 3 other subjects, as compared to Kano, Lagos, and Oyo, which are the 3 top states in the national performance charts in Nigeria. Does this give the marking scheme some credibility of some sort, that on the foreign continent or foreign African country in Gabon, where there's a foreign center, even one candidate could not manage 5 credit passes?
Well, that may not be, for me, a basis of comparison. It only means that perhaps the fellows in Gabon is not an English-speaking country.
It's a francophone country.
So, being a non-English-speaking environment, there might be difficulty of the students even having instructional materials and teachers to appropriately guide them. So, we cannot possibly judge them. I've seen students who, when they have failed, right? But you sit them down and then you ask questions in their mother tongue, and they will tell you,
from the question paper set.
Yes, I didn't know that is what they ask for. When you say this, he will tell you all the answers in his mother tongue, but not able to interpret the question correctly in English, and therefore he or she has failed the exam. So language of communication and some other means can be issue. But when you come to marking schemes are based on the exam. They are based on the syllabus. And so I don't think anything is totally or outrightly wrong with the scheme. It's just that there should be that continuous connection, coordination between who are those deploying the teaching, what is the content of the curriculum, who are those standardizing the question, who are those moderating the process. And when that is defined, I think that would be fair to all. But when you now come to, migrating to the digital system, I think I don't always agree with some of the sentiment of people who think rural area. When you say the rural area, in some of the rural area, what is the number of students? What do we need to require to put this thing in place? Should people wake up at 5 a.m. in the name of going to look for CBT centers to write JAM? So I think that to a large extent, some of these exams need to be deconstructed and be redefined. There is nothing wrong in you having, at least for a start, standard CBT centers that can seat 500 candidates in every local government of the federation. Across the 774 local government, let's have a minimum base. This is the number. So that means in your local government, there is a place where you can write. So if the individual schools cannot be built up to that standard, I know in FCT, a good number of the secondary school in FCT also have very good CBT centers now that can be relied upon. But at least in one place in every local government, there should be that. And then you can now plan around it and begin to build up. And then, of course, if the school cannot prove that they have, because if it becomes part of the process of writing the exam, then the school must be able to prepare their students for it. If the students are not ready, they go. Some schools don't have lab. In secondary school, I used to know that in my first secondary school, people come from other secondary school to write their chemistry and physics practicals in my school, because their school at the time couldn't afford or did not have a standard science laboratory that could be used for that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ben. In closing, Doctor, let's come back to you. It's on the topic of a reintroduction of history as a compulsory subject for basic school curriculum in Nigeria. In less than a minute or two, let's get your thoughts on the significance of this government policy and how it will strengthen the curriculum, or particularly the knowledge of Nigerian students on the history of our country?
Yes, thank you very much. The reintroduction of history into the Nigerian curriculum is really a welcome development. You see, the ab initio, history has been an integral aspect of the Nigerian curriculum system, especially the secondary school curriculum. And I don't know, I want to say that I think it's a deliberate effort. It is a deliberate effort to, obliterate or keep the current breach of students from their past history. And I think it is important we note that uh, any nation that or any nations whose citizens do not have a proper sense or knowledge of their past, then they will not be able to understand or comprehend their present. Uh, and this goes on to say that they won't not be able to have or carve a befitting future for themselves. The desire, it is from the word go, it is a deliberate attempt by the former or hostile colonial masters to obliterate our history so as to ensure that the current generations of elites or students basically do not have a fair understanding of the past, so as to be able to not have a true picture of the situation currently. And when they don't have these two knowledges, then or true knowledge, they won't be able to understand the direction of things. So I think in conclusion or in summary, history should be made a core aspect of our nation's curriculum, because it is not only going to expose the present generations to our rich past, it is also going to give students across board the opportunity to ask germane questions and to interrogate certain happenings so as to be able to have the opportunity to correct certain things in the future.
All right.
Nigeria today is in its present predicament because of this particular reality that our history have actually been obliterated from our history,
All right,
from
Doctor.
our curriculum. So if these things can be done properly, I can assure you that the divide, how the politicians now, especially the rate at which politicians manipulate,
We need to go, sir.
religion and other, parochial.
We need to go. Thank you very much, Dr. Bashir Suleiman, for joining us and lending your thoughts on the conversation. A big thank you to you, Mr. Ben Agunoye, as well. Enjoy the rest of your day.
My pleasure.